This is a busy one. So we're going to start out with the 2021 budget review for the Orange County Stonewater Conservation District. Could I get a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
So moved. Ruskevich.
Ruskevich and Tui. Okay. Kevin Sumner, are you on the line with us?
I'm here.
Okay. If you could just kind of give us a brief overview of the budget request.
Okay. We put in our request level with last year, or the current year, which was $242,991. As I'm sure you all know, that was adjusted by County Executive's Office down 15%, which amounts to $36,000 and change. As far as the current year, we did receive some reductions that amounted to about 24% of our current year budget. So we've been continuing to operate on a somewhat of a scaled down basis. We haven't had any layoffs, and we've continued to come to the office on a regular basis, but we've had to put some construction projects on hold. We did manage to scale down the flood mitigation work that was planned for this year, and that actually is just wrapping up today, as a matter of fact. But due to some of these funding issues, we had to reduce the project in scope and hold on the tree planting aspect of it. So our directors were very committed to trying to get some construction done to keep our momentum going, but we did have to push our budget to the limits to be able to get that construction done. As far as our state funding goes, which is, I think you all know, is intertwined, so to speak, with the local funding because of the match requirements of a lot of the grants that we operate under. So far, we're not aware that any of our state revenues got reduced or eliminated. They've just been delayed. Some aspects of the state funding has gotten back to a functional basis, and some of it hasn't. Some of the grants that we've applied for have been ranked, but the lists have not been released by the governor. So that's kind of where we stand right now. We're just hoping that that things continue to get back to normal next year, so that we can ramp back up with our construction projects on the farms. And if anyone had a chance to look at the brief picture report that we presented, we did highlight a couple of the projects that we've been able to keep rolling. We'd like to be doing more work outside the ag sector, but those are some of the programs that, because of funding delays and other issues with the current COVID situation, we've had to really scale back on some of the non-agricultural conservation programming that we do. So I'll leave it at that, Mr. Cheney, unless there's other questions from the committee.
Well, yeah, certainly. Let's ask if there are any questions. I see Legislator Tui has his hand up. Go ahead, Legislator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had a question when you were just saying that the state funding is delayed so far, and is that the portion of the 20% withhold that the governor has, that the state has going across most of our programs in the county? And if it is that, what's the impact on you if it possibly doesn't come back, if it becomes permanent?
Well, I'm not 100% sure about this, but I don't believe that 20% is extending to the funding sources that that Soil and Water is attached to. For example, the Environmental Protection Fund. As far as we know, that's still intact, and it's just a matter of vouchers that are getting processed slowly by state finance department, and like I said, some of the other grants that just are not even being announced. One of the big revenues that we were hoping was going to come in this year, but hasn't, is a SAM grant from Senator Metzger's office to support the Walk Hill Black Dirt flood mitigation work, and we're told that those awards are not being affected. They're just being delayed because of the reduced staffing at the state agency that does that work. So as far as we know, our funding sources are not being reduced by that 20% figure.
Okay, with that funding that was supposed to come from the senator there, when were you supposed to get that?
Well, there wasn't ever really a delivery date. They tell us that even before the current COVID situation slowing things down, that these SAM grant contracts typically would take a year to be processed once you submit your application to the State Dormitory Authority. And we submitted that application in November of 2019. So assuming things were operating quote unquote normally, then we might be expecting to hear something about that contract any time now. But because of that reduced staffing at the STASNY agency, it's really, nobody's giving us any kind of a prediction about when to see it. They're only telling us that it's solid.
Okay, just one more last question. Thank you very much. How much is that funding?
$400,000.
Thank you. I hope you get it.
So do we.
Just as a follow-up to that, Kevin, is there a local share to that $400,000 grant?
There is not. It is a reimbursement program, so we're going to be just kind of hoping that we can cash flow pieces of the project, and that the reimbursement procedures are quick enough that we'll be able to front the money and then get it back from the state in a timely fashion. So that particular grant or award does not have a local match requirement, other than us being able to cash flow it. But the other big grant that we're waiting on is through the Climate Resilient Farming Program, and that one is $300,000 in state money with $200,000 local match. So that's where we rely heavily upon the county appropriation, and we allocate as much of that as we can to match those grant awards. A lot of those state grants are getting more and more competitive, and we've determined that we need to try to bump up our local match percentage in order to reach the ranking that's going to get us funded. So that's one of the projects that we'll be watching closely going into next year. If the state releases that money, then we'll just have to make sure that we have the local match to meet what was promised in the grant application.
And that would have to coincide with when the money's spent, more than to have it show up in a budget somewhere ahead of the fact of receiving the grant and spending the money, right?
Yes, just we need to plan ahead with these big construction projects, with bidding timelines and things like that. So it's always kind of I'm sure everybody was in the same boat as us this year. trying to predict what was going to happen and trying to get something done without overextending ourselves. So that if that grant comes through, the climate resilient farming grant that's got the $300,000 state money, it will normally those have a 3-year time frame on the contract. So that the first year we'll be able to sit on it a little bit, so to speak, if we're still unsure about some of the local revenues. But as the grant time frame elapses, then it'll get to the point where we'll have to make a decision on whether the local funds are available or whether we're going to have to turn back some of that state funding.
All right. I see Legislator Ruskevich has his hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the grant from Senator Metzger, which Peter already asked, and also more of the local match. For some of these other grants, that climate resilient farming grant, we've received that in the past in order to do some of the previous projects on the river, Kevin, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
And so it's fairly likely that we may be approved for this this next round, in which case we would need the local match.
Yes. And,
okay, and how much would the local match be again? I know you mentioned it. I forgot to write it down.
200,000.
200,000. So
yeah.
I guess what I'm getting at here is the county's cut of 36,000 and change. How is that going to affect your total budget and ability to get some of these grants? Because in our budget books here, with the contract agencies, we don't see the entire budget. We just see the portion for the county appropriation.
Yeah, well, as you know, Paul, we for the last several years, we've earmarked $50,000 of our county appropriation specifically for construction work, for contractual work on the Black Dirt flood mitigation projects. We often end up allocating additional portions of our appropriation to that as well, depending on how things shake out as the year progresses. But we do hard earmark that $50,000, and so that would be, that 200,000 local match includes that 50,000. So, every dollar that goes down is a dollar that we have to try to find somewhere else, or it reduces what we can get back from the state. And the local funding is pretty much county funding. There's not a lot of other revenue sources for us that are considered local, except that I will say the state has, in just the last few years, has become much more generous in a particular fund that they provide to all the counties, which they call Part C funding. That money has gone up from about 15,000 a few years ago to now somewhere around 100,000. And once we earn that money and it gets into our account, that is considered local funding. So we use that to match against other state funds, but we combine that Part C funding with the county appropriation funding so that we can then maximize the amount of state funding that we ask for. And the ratios on these grants are always different, but the climate resilient farming one is a good example where for $2 of local money, we're asking for $3 of state money.
Okay, so that reduction in county funds could potentially be a loss of a lot more in terms of leveraging that money for larger grants.
Yeah, I mean, it really, it could make the difference whether, as I mentioned, we had scaled back the flood project work this year. We divided the area in two and just did the smaller of two areas. Now, next year's project, we're relying on the SAM grant from Metzger's office in order to be able to complete that, because that's a $400,000 project, and we're not going to be able to cobble together that kind of money from other sources. But we need to be doing all the permitting and design work in 2021 so that we can continue the flood mitigation work upstream from County Route 1. So in order to get all those pieces in place for for the next phase of construction after phase 3, we would need to have that. We would need to be able to assemble that $200,000, over the next 2 years, in order to be able to match that $300,000 from the state.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I guess just kind of to follow up a little bit on the decrease of $36,450. Does that was that money going to be directed to use for projects that you'd be receiving state funding on?
Well, that's kind of, I guess, going to be a board of directors decision. When we submitted this year's budget level with last year, our intention was to, as we have been doing, immediately allocate $50,000 of that to the construction work. So if the reduction that's we're looking at now sticks, then my board will have to decide how they want to, if they want to apply that equally to the dedicated flood project funding, or if they want to do something different with that.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the committee? Any questions from other legislators? Okay, then. One more thing I wanted to mention now that we're talking about the impacts. As I said, we had to stretch quite a bit to get this construction project done this summer, and it's going to require us tapping into some of our what we call soft dedicated funds, like equipment replacement and contingency funds. So, to some extent, that's what those funds are for, the contingency fund for sure. But I just wanted to kind of emphasize, we were really stretching to get that project done, and we're going to have to try to make up some ground over the next couple of years, which I'm sure we're not alone in that respect. But that's, it's going to be, will require a lot of discussion on the part of the board in terms of replenishing funds and how much we hold to make sure we can pay the bills to the end of the year, and how much we allocate to getting the construction work done as well. Legislator Iskevich, your hand's still up.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just like Kevin said, the board has been working pretty hard to stretch their budget pretty much as far as they can stretch it in order to get some of this work done. And I know there's a lot of uncertainty with the state money. I know they say money's on hold, but we all know how that can turn out, especially depending on how the situation goes. I know 36,000 doesn't seem like a whole lot of money, but for the budget that Soil and Water operates with, it's a pretty hard hit. So I would like to see us restore at least part of that money, if possible. I'd be willing to make a motion to that effect.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to restore $36,450 to Soil and Water.
Is there a second to that motion? I'll second it. So now for discussion on the motion to amend the budget for Soil and Water to restore $36,450. Anyone like to?
I have a question. Kulisek?
Legislator Kulisek, go ahead.
Where would that money come from? We have to find it somewhere in the budget to give to Soil and Water.
Good point.
This is Antoinette Reed. This agency is funded completely by county taxation.
So that's the answer.
Well, but that doesn't mean it couldn't come from somewhere else.
Correct, but that's where they receive their funding from.
Well, if there's no other answer, then Paul, you're saying it's county taxation, it's gonna fund the 36,450?
Right.
Either county taxation, unless we can find that from another source, but I would leave that up to budget to see where they, how they would handle that. I don't know if we have anybody from budget.
Or surplus.
Or,
Correct.
right.
Yeah, I think we kind of have to wait until the end to see how things are going to flesh out. Depending on how you want to treat the tax levy, and after the auditor's report, I'm thinking we'd have to make that determination. But in the budget right now, it would be from taxation.
Okay.
Deb, is there any contingency in the budget? It has been there in years past.
There is some contingency in the budget, so if you wanted to, wait until next year to see how it goes and then come back to contingency. But again, this year we ended up, because of the COVID, we ended up using a significant amount of that contingency for that purpose. So, I mean, it is there. I believe it's a little bit more than $1 million this year. I think it's 1.25 million.
Okay. And we can change that in a subsequent meeting as to where the money comes from.
You could, yeah, you could. If you want to wait until after you get your report from the auditors.
Right.
I believe you would do that on November 5th when you have your special Ways and Means committee meeting with the auditors with O'Connor Davies.
So does this motion then require that we designate where the funding comes from to support this change?
Yes.
Okay, so Legislator Riskevich, I'd ask you to
Yep.
amend.
Yeah, I would, I guess, amend the motion to add 36,450 to show an order budget and take that money from county taxation, assuming that we'll be able to change that later on.
Okay, and I'll second that.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Let me take a look. Like there might be a hand up. Okay, Legislator Benton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hate to be a bad guy or seem like the bad guy here, but we have no idea about our finances, and everybody else. Everybody, I'm sure, has their own pet projects, their own pet ideas, and, Cornell Cooperative Extension. Nobody can ever say, sorry, but, we're going to accept the cut. We always add it back. I think right now, this year, we should do no add backs and just simply, if a project comes up in 2021 and they need funding for it, we would have a better idea of what our funding is going to be in the future. And then we could obviously take it from surplus at that point, rather than doing this automatic, they're nice, so we're going to add it back. The county executive's the bad guy, taking $36,000 out. And when we have no idea where money is coming from, we have no idea what amount of money is coming from. And if they have some project that is reasonable and needed next year, well, we'll take it up next year when we can do things a little more informed and we can do them just as easy. Thank you.
Thank you, Legislator Benton. I'm gonna go from the committee first. So, Minority Leader Paduch, you're next.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lee said most of what I was going to talk about as well. That the county executive, all other departments are supposed to reduce their budget by 15%. I mean, if the opportunity comes along to support this project in the future before the November meeting, I would probably support it. However, I got to agree with Mr. Benton here. We got to hold tight with just about everything. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Majority Leader Benelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I have to say that I agree with both Legislator Benton and Minority Leader Paduch. While I fully support and understand where the need for the $36,000 is to be able to implement this, I'm not really prepared to vote for that today. As Legislator Benton said, at Ways and Means, when we meet with the auditors, we'll have a better idea whether we can plug it in at that point. And I probably would be a yes vote, knowing that we had that money and have a better financial picture. At this point, I think it's too premature for me personally to be able to support that movement, but I would obviously consider it for Ways and Means or even throughout the year. And I know we've done that before, and I think we did it on the tire program. That was very successful, and I know that that's something that was wanted to be added to the budget, and we said, let's see how the year goes. And we were able to implement that. So I think we could follow that practice once again. But as far as today's vote is concerned, I'm not really prepared to vote in the positive for that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Majority Leader Benelli. I'll just add my 2 cents here. I think that the budget that's been presented to us has taken small amounts of money, seemingly small amounts of money, at least compared to the county's budget, from various areas that are people, organizations who are our partners in getting things done. And it ends up being a much more substantial part of their budget and has a greater impact than I see it having on the overall county budget. So I just think that, you know, we've got to take a hard look. Just because it's a tough year doesn't mean that we shouldn't be looking at these partners that we have and treating them fairly and respectfully. And I'm not sure that this budget does that in a lot of instances. Cornell Cooperative Extension, they came in with a 5% cut in what they asked the county for. You know, I think that, you know, they've tried, but, you know, some of them with even smaller budgets are impacted pretty significantly by the cuts that were done by the county executive's office. So, okay, I guess with that, we do have a motion in front of us to
Barry?
Yes.
Peter Tui had his hand up. He just put it down.
I'm okay, Barry. I did want to just say that I agree to try to get them something back, but I'd like to see it happen later on in the process and not put it back in right now and wait till that early November. So I would be a no today also, although I do want to bring it back. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? If not, Paul, is it your desire to proceed or with a vote? You're muted, Paul.
Sorry, yeah, at this point, I mean, I would obviously support it, but based on the comments, which I can't say fully disagree with, I think there is opportunity possibly in the future to provide funding if the need arises to get local matching funds for larger projects. So for now, I guess I'd withdraw that motion.
Okay. All right. Good.
Could I make one more comment, Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, I just want to, you know, everybody, as it was mentioned before, has their pet projects, but I don't really think of this as a pet project as much as a project that, given current circumstances, has, you know, something that I think we need to give elevated support to, not decrease support, because we're talking about food production here. And I think everybody knows that with the way things went this year, people, I think, have a deeper appreciation of where their food comes from, and preserving our ability to produce it locally is what we're trying to do here. So, but I do thank the committee members for keeping an open mind about this if November brings different circumstances.
Okay, thank you. Majority Leader Benelli, you have your hand up.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. And this is more of a procedural question, and maybe Antoinette can answer that. As I said before, I think it has some merit, but not having all of the information from the auditors, I'm not comfortable with it at this point. How do we ensure that it gets reviewed at Ways and Means when we do discuss all of these possible adjustments? Do we have to do some type of a resolution here to send it to them? Or is it just simply to ask Mr. Benton, who's in the middle of my screen, to put it, to make sure that he puts it there?
Well, typically, this is Antoinette Reed speaking. Typically, it comes out of the committees as a recommendation for an amendment to as an adjustment to the county exec's budget. And then that is brought before the Special Ways and Means Committee for a vote by that committee. But Mr. Benton, if he so chooses to put it on the agenda for that day, or ask Mr. Riss, Paul, I don't think you're on that committee. Are you on Ways and Means?
I am not. No.
Yeah. So, I mean, if someone from that committee wants to make a motion to add that money, the $36,450, they can do so at that time.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and
You're welcome.
when is that final meeting? Because we have Ways and Means later this week, but that final meeting to add
November 3rd.
November. Okay,
So it's next week.
next
November
week.
5th, right?
It's Thursday, November 5th, 5:30 after our legislative session.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the information.
Thank you for getting us that clarification.
No problem.
Chairman Brescia, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm keeping my screen off because I have a cold and I've sneezed about 20 times since I turned it off, so I'm just going to keep it off, but I've been here the whole time. I don't think this is our 6th day of budget meetings, and I don't think we've had any changes in committee to send to Ways and Means, except actually tourism, we just changed around within the budget, I believe, $16,000 for a full-time position and taking it out of the contract with Focus Media for that. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've had any other changes really to send to that committee, have we? Or did I miss something?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Okay, but so Lee will duly note it for his committee, and you can discuss it there as was discussed. So I just wanted to say that. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. All right, then I guess then the budget stands as presented by the county executive for Orange County Soil and Water Conservation District. So at this time, seeing that there are no further hands raised, that I will call the question on that budget. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Sumner.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, we're going to the budget for the Orange County Water Authority. It can be on pages 294 to 296 in the budget book. And at this time, I would ask for a motion regarding the 2021 budget of the Orange County Water Authority.
Kulisek motion.
Kulisek, thank you. And a second, please.
Tui, second.
Peter Toohey, thank you, Legislator Toohey. Okay, I would ask representatives of the Water Authority to take a few moments and give an overview of their budget. In addition to what's in the book, we should have received from the Water Authority, legislators should have received a 2021 draft budget that shows the 2020 approved budget, the 2021 Water Authority Board approved budget, and the 2021 County Executive proposed budget. So hopefully you have that in front of you or access to it. And I would now ask the representatives of the Water Authority who are with us to introduce themselves and give a little bit of an overview.
Hello, everybody. This is Enika Cruz. I'm the administrator for the Water Authority. I think I'm flying solo today. Dave Church officially retired his affiliation with the Water Authority on September 1st. But we did put together this budget and submitted it back in June. Now if you can see the reference, the detailed budget report that we had put together comparing this year's budget and next year's proposed budget, we tried to cut back as much as possible. We have a lot of grant projects currently that are wrapping up this year that we're going to just end them because their contracts are expiring with the various agencies. So we're going to wrap them up and submit for final reimbursement. But next year, really what the Water Authority is going to be focusing on is two main crucial projects that the Water Authority felt that they are important for the county, especially the city of Newberg, who has been impacted with contamination, water quality issues. So when we prepared the budget, obviously it was in the middle of the pandemic, and we tried to keep that in the forefront on what our request was. So the Water Authority requested for county funding through taxation in the amount of $408,570 to balance its budget. We have about a little over $200,000 in grant reimbursements expected. It actually may be higher since a lot of our projects were stalled during the pandemic. So that work's kind of ramped up now, but we're at a kind of tipping point with the Water Authority's projects and programs. The county executive's recommended budget cut the Water Authority's budget by a little over 72%, down to $113,544. I did a full analysis and included it in the packet. Other than payroll and benefits, it will not fund any activities that the Water Authority would need to do, including its required annual audit, board insurance, business insurance, those sorts of things. So it doesn't even cover our basic overhead expenses. And I wanted to request that at least the majority of what the Water Authority Board of Directors had approved to be reinstated in the 2021 budget. But it really is going to come down to how the legislature feels about the Water Authority's programs and projects. Now, the City of Newberg project, the Water Authority received a $1.7 million grant for the DEC to research and purchase conservation easements or land around the City of Newberg's reservoirs. The original focus was Washington Lake and Browns Pond. Washington Lake at this point is not going to be used for the foreseeable future. So we've kind of refocused our energies around Browns Pond, especially since it's also New Windsor's backup water source. So what we were looking at doing is purchasing the land or conservation easements and restoring areas to prevent runoff, to protect Browns Pond. We did outreach in late 2019 to 16 homeowners and landowners around Browns Pond, and we received, I believe it was five people came back saying they were interested in learning more about it or were actually interested in participating in the project. We've kind of estimated, we calculated, I think we had originally estimated $1.8 million for the purchase price of these easements or land. It's at this point, it's probably more like 1.6 million. While this is all grant funded, the cash has to be laid out because it's reimbursement based. The grant does expire at the end of this year. We've kind of hesitated extending the grant because if we don't have the cash flow to purchase these properties and do the legal work, surveys, appraisals, those sorts of things, then we're going to have to return the grant. Our other notable project is a Hudson River curriculum grant that the Water Authority has been focusing on. We've kind of reworked that as well because the Water Authority has a conservation education program that's been up and running in schools since 1994. It's a very popular and high demand program. This program serves as the county's education component for the MS4 requirements for the stormwater permitting. It also serves as the county DPW's education resource for solid waste and recycling education. So it's a very cost-effective program. The kids love it. And it really has made an impact because, you know, it's hard to find water, but it's easy to save what you already have. So we've kind of done in the last couple of years with Dave Church and the board, we've kind of looked at ways to underwrite the program. And one of those ways we've done is by applying for every single grant that comes across my desk. We did receive a $27,000 grant through the Hudson River Estuary program to write down the curriculum that we've developed and changed over the years. But also because of the pandemic, kind of amend this program in a way to make it not only more cost effective because our educators can't get to every school in the Hudson River watershed. So we're looking at ways to not only make the program specific to the Hudson River watershed and really drive home the need to conserve water and how it would impact the kids and families right in their own homes, but also to adapt the program into a virtual version of the program, also incorporating ADA, increasing ADA accessibility for deaf and blind students and other special needs students. So we really feel this is a great program. Our educators are very excited about it. But again, this program requires cash up front and reimbursement. So I think that's about it for our projects and programs. So it's essentially just, oh, and the other program that we're working with is, or the project is the Dwark Hill Pine Bush Water Supply Project that is slated to start construction in the spring. We helped the town of Crawford secure a $1.8 million grant to construct the project. But the Water Authority is kind of at a standstill, not having even a quorum on the board. So that's something else the county is working on, kind of filling up our board so we can make some of these important decisions. But that project actually requires no funding, just support and expertise of the Water Authority and its consultants. And I think that's it.
Okay, Anika, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Council Antoinette Reed, you have your hand up.
Yes, I do. Just a question, and I'm not sure if it's for Enika or for the Deputy County Executive or our Budget Director. Some of the operating expenses were slashed to zero, and the accountant fees were slashed, audit fees, bank account fees, insurance fees, leases, some maintenance fees, some postage. There are certain fees that I believe, even if we were to defund the Water Authority, you still have to close out their books and close out their obligations and meet their statutory obligations. I believe that they would still need an accountant. They would still need to do an audit for 2020. I'm not sure what the bank account fees were, but that may be a fee that is ongoing. I'm not sure what the $10,000 insurance fee is. Leases, that could be equipment for like the Xerox machine or a Ricoh machine. She might still have postage requirements. There are some ongoing supplies that the office might need just to close down. So I'm not sure how the administration or the water authority is going to fund those obligations that they'll have going forward in 2021. So I just want to bring that to the attention and see if anyone has an answer for those expenses.
Thank you. Is there someone able to respond to that?
Yes, I can do that.
Go ahead.
For the last couple of years, the county executive's budget has zeroed out for essentially the water authority. And this budget does the same thing. He keeps in place the salary and benefit costs for Enica so that she can continue to close out the grant programs and take care of any other paperwork that's still hanging out there, and also to be active and look for grants and things like that. But I'll give you an example of what's going on in terms of support for that office. The Door Kill project, which with the town of Crawford has been going on for quite a while. And quite frankly, we're using our own attorneys in the county attorney's office to get that legal work done. And the same would carry through for those other minor costs that might still be lingering should this budget go through as proposed. The education program, I mean, during the COVID crisis we've gone through, no one was having anybody in school at all to teach. So that program it can go by the wayside or be picked up by some other agency. And the Browns Pond project, we hope that will happen. Browns Pond is a large reservoir in the town of New Windsor that's owned by the city of Newberg and shared as a backup resource for the town of New Windsor. And the idea of not using the $1.7 million is a grant to complete that project is something that we want to achieve. So we have reduced down all the spending that we can for the water authority, but at the same time providing for what is needed to finish up the work that continues on the table.
Thank you. Council Reed?
Yes, just to Mr. Poor, we still need to pay the accountant fees and the audit fees, and I'm not sure what the bank account fees are and what kind of insurances the water authority has. So those things are, those expenses, I don't think are expenses that could be absorbed in a department, another department doing it. An audit is done by an independent CPA firm. So I think the water authority will still need that. I'm not sure what services the accountant provides, but I would tend to think that will assist the water authority in closing out and making sure that the numbers are correct on the outstanding grant projects. So I think there's still money that needs to be added to this budget for purposes of, you know, if you want to defund it and keep the water authority vacant, then that's you know, that's a policy decision, but I think you still have to fund some of these expenses going forward so that the water authority can meet its statutory financial obligations.
Well, if we can account for what those numbers are, we can always come back to the legislature at a later date. And the other point I wanted to make, which I didn't make before, is that the board members, pretty much to a person, except for one, have resigned. And the only one left that I recently did a review of who was still interested in being reappointed. The only individual on the board authority that has indicated affirmatively is Mr. Tully, Art Tully. Mr. Devitt is no longer going to serve, and Mike Warden, I spoke to him last week. He is retired from Orange County College. He's off the board as well. Mr. Mendelbaum has also left the board. So we are in the process right now of identifying new board members to put together the board with the idea of the county executive to minimize its operation and close out these projects.
Thank you. All right, I have a couple of legislators raised. Legislator Benton, you're on.
Lee, you're muted.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry. You still forget sometimes.
I've done amendment.
Yeah, we started to say, we know that things have been changing at the Water Authority for the last number of years, where we get a proposed budget and then we just add things back. This might be the year where we actually do make the policy decisions with the county executive's office. And instead of adding back dribs and drabs and picking and choosing today, this might be another something that we do at Ways and Means at a later date, after we've discussed it with the auditors, as well as leadership, with that meeting coming up with leadership and Bennett Kielsen or O'Connor Davies. So this might be the year where we actually have to commit to policy changes. That's just my comment.
Thank you, Legislator Benelli. Majority Leader, thank you, Legislator Benton. Majority Leader Benelli, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have a few questions, and some of them, well, first of all, some of them were answered by Antoinette Reed, so I appreciate that. But in the document that was sent, Enica, in regard to the projects that were pending, and even in the budget itself, there's a notation that without increased funding, these grants would have to be returned. Can you explain to me, if we've received these grants, are these grants received by technically the Water Authority? And if we don't have somebody to operate that, we lose the grant? Or is it issued to Orange County or the County of Orange? I'm a little perplexed at why we have to return these grants.
Yeah, it was the Orange County Water Authority. We are a separate entity with a separate tax ID number, and it was awarded to the Water Authority. If the Water Authority doesn't have the cash flow, it cannot. We just couldn't do the project. I don't know if the grant is transferable. I've posed that question, and our representative at the DC, our contract representative, was going to look into it, because somebody said, well, maybe, the city of Newberg could take it over, but it still requires a $600,000 match. Even if they do get the $1.7 million, they'd still have to figure out where that $600,000 was going to come from.
I understand that, which brings me to the Moodna Creek Watershed, the Intermunicipal Council. Now we have them paying actual dues or fees each year.
Yes.
So is that the $5,000 that I see in the budget?
Yes, so that's their dues. It gets booked tomorrow. You're marked just for them, so they use them for their various projects, implementation projects they do around the Moodna Creek Watershed. Last year or earlier this year, last year, 2019, we had installed, the Water Authority obtained a grant, and the $8,000 match for the project was paid from the Moodna Council, paid the cash match. So those are the things that they use those dues for, is implementing projects in the Moodna Creek Watershed Plan.
Okay, but that project is listed as one of the ones that would have to be returned. So I don't understand why that would be listed there.
No, not the Moodna Creek.
Yes.
No, it's the Hudson River. It's the two grants we really haven't gotten too far ahead. The rest of the grants will be done this year.
Okay.
So it's the Newberg Watershed, the Newberg Water Quality Improvement Project, which is the $1.7 million grant, will have to be returned. I don't know if it's transferable. If the county is willing to take it over, that's something that we would certainly be open to. And the education program is on hold, as Harry said. We did put it on hold. The only thing those educators are working on right now is this Hudson River education curriculum grant. So, but if we don't have, again, the funding, the ability, we wouldn't be able to work on that grant. So I can't ask my educators to work complimentary.
Okay, and the other thing that perplexed me, and not that it's a minor thing, but in the book, we have the 2021 department request, which is the $113,000. Why wasn't it the number that the Water Authority had asked for? Because it's kind of misleading that the department requested it and the county executive's budget is exactly the same. So if we didn't have this supplemental attachment here, we wouldn't have seen any different. So why was it put in the budget that way?
That's a
and that
budget
may be
question.
a question. Okay, I was just going to say that might be a question.
I submitted it before the deadline. I did submit it in June. So why it was not in there, I don't know.
I'd ask Debbie to comment on that.
I believe that the plan was that we were only going to fund just the salary and benefits for the executive director. I believe that's your title, right?
No, just administrator.
Administrator, I'm sorry.
Okay, and one last question, which could be for budget, probably not necessarily for Enica. Thank you. Previously, when Commissioner Church was the executive director, it's my understanding that even after he retired, he worked with the Water Authority, but I don't see any notation of any monies that had been spent to him. Was there any?
Yes, there was. Well, through the end of March, he was under the executive director stipend. After that, he was merely serving on a consultant basis to help me wrap up the some of the current projects that we had that he had been deeply involved with, and he had been responsible for certain tasks in the project. So he stayed on as a consultant basis, and those fees were charged to the project management and technical assistance line. We did sign an agreement that he would work through up to the end of the year to help me close out those grants, but he did wrap up effective September 1st.
All right, thank you. And then the other question is that this one probably is definitely for budget. And in both proposals, both the Water Authority's budget and the county executive's budget, there's a zero for executive director. Does that mean that our commissioner of planning has no involvement with the Water Authority at all?
At this time, he does not. Although he has
therefore,
giving us assistance and advice and guidance for these last few months.
So if we're receiving any grants, are we getting any kind of reimbursement for salaries such as Enica's at least? Do you know?
Yes, approximately 30% of my salary this year came from grant funding. That's another thing that we've tried to work on is bringing more money into the Water Authority versus spending it on consultants and outside firms.
So when I'm looking at your revenue, the revenue for the particular grant, those numbers would be folded into that, correct?
Yes, correct.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
You're
Chairman.
welcome.
You're welcome. All right, Legislator Kulisek, your hand's up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is probably directed to Deputy County Executive Poor. How long has there been vacancies at the Board of Directors at the Water Authority?
So for quite a long time.
Why weren't they filled?
Because we wanted to put the Water Authority on the shelf and didn't see an urgency to do that. We were even thinking at one point of rolling it into the planning department or possibly under Bob Gray's operation over at the sewer plant to the water environmental resources. Now we've decided, looking at this, maybe we'll put the board together, get a little more new direction, and diminish its footprint, if you will, to just those things that are essential.
Okay. So essentially, as I listened to Council Reed, Antoinette Reed, discussing things, the defunding, and actually it seems as if that decision has been made, and you just stated so, that this whole water authority, which has been defunded year after year after year, is going to be put on the shelf. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
After spending $27 million and not having any water, maybe it's time to stop and take a look at it and see what we're going to do.
Yeah, and I have a couple other questions. The Dwark Hill grant for 1.8 million. Is there a matching number for that grant?
Yeah, I think it was 300,000. I think it was 90% funded, and the town is going to issue a bond for the match.
Okay, because we have a $1.7 million grant in Newberg for the Watershed Protection, and a lot of that I think is going to be in-kind services, the match, and also the Orange County Land Trust and Scenic Hudson, who volunteered to provide funding for this important project I read here. Is that
yes.
True? So why can't we, or do we need a board of directors to make a decision to take a vote to accept that grant and move it forward with someone else funding our matching grant, our section of the grant? And it's vital. Harry, you know Browns Pond and Washington Lake just as well as I do.
Absolutely.
So and it's not just watershed protection for Browns Pond. We still, even though Washington Lake has an issue correct in right now, it eventually, I hope, will be resolved and we'll be able to use that reservoir again. So we can't just stop protecting the area around Washington Lake. I mean, there's issues here that you know as well as I do, and maybe the other 20 legislators don't know as well as I do, but exactly what it curtails. And Windsor, I mean, when they go down, they need Newberg's reservoir to help them also. I mean, this is a big issue.
Well, again, maybe I wasn't clear. We're totally supportive of that project and the Crawford project. The reason why we're putting funding in there to keep Unica on board is so that we can close out and finish those projects. And I think the grant is not to us, it's to the Orange County Water Authority. That is what requires us now to put new members on that board so that board can be managed. So we're not against those projects. We're for those projects. They're very critical both to Crawford and to New Windsor Newberg.
Yeah, but you got 2 months and a week if that grant goes away at the end of this year. And if we needed a board to make that decision when we have the funding, I don't know why we would hesitate on even moving forward with that.
Well, you have a board coming to you for your confirmation very soon.
And it has to be real soon. I mean, if they're going to get a vote together and understand what they're voting on.
Well, what happens? You do have a board right now because everybody continues to serve as long as until they're replaced or reappointed. The problem that Unica has had in these last 2 months or so is that she doesn't have a quorum. Some of those that were on there before and participating and approving spending and approving bills, they are not there any longer. So this is a relatively new phenomenon, and that's why we're acting on it now.
It was my understanding when I talked with planning maybe 3 weeks ago, a month ago, that there were 4 names that were going to be presented to the legislature for recommendation to the board. And it's been a month, 6 weeks now, and I haven't heard or seen anything. So
I'm not aware of that. I don't have 4 names to give you right now.
You don't have 4 names to give us?
Nothing that's been confirmed. I have 1 confirmation of people that have been quizzed about this, and we are definitely interviewing with other people right now. But to say that 4 people were ready to go, that's news to me.
Okay, and back to Dwark Hill. Now, that's a very important project out there.
Absolutely.
Pine Bush area needs the water, town of Crawford.
Yep.
But it is no more important than the city of Newberg and New Windsor and this $1.7 million grant. So, yes, they're going to go and they're going to bond $300,000 or change, whatever they need to do to put up their share of it. We have somebody who is putting up the share of it for the Newberg Watershed Protection. I'd really like to see it moved along before the end of the year.
We agree.
Yeah, but we agree it's not making it happen. We need to have a board that can sit down and make the determination and vote in favor of it and get the paperwork to the state, no?
Can I just hop in here quick? The Water Authority does have a contract with the state already. We've done all the legwork to date, all the outreach to the residents. We have a short list of properties to purchase, but we can't move farther in going to survey the property and do appraisals and those sorts of things without funding next year. Just on our the operating expenses line, since I'm the only employee of the Orange County Water Authority, and being a public entity, an accountant is required for checks and balances. An audit is required, an independent audit. The Water Authority does have a contract with an outside firm who's been doing our audit for several years. Just trying to think of the other lines that you had questions on. But, you know, I can't ask.
Bank account fees?
Bank account fees are interest and other fees that the bank's been charging us. We actually were in the process of researching and switching banks before we ran out of board members to have a quorum. So I can't even change banks. I just keep paying the fees because the Bank of America fees are just overboard and unnecessary. And I've requested numerous times for them to halt the fees and refund us, you know, any overcharges. And I've practically gotten nowhere. So, but
Insurance, 10,000.
Yeah, that's the board's E&O insurance, and it's also business liability insurance. It covers, you know, employees and the business as a whole. So that's what insurance is.
One other question, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Legislator Blues.
The Water Authority is a bonding agent. They can bond their own projects, no?
Yes.
Okay, and the monies that are going to be received from the Dwarkill project, the raw water going to the treatment plant that's going to the water district, that'll be, if it's not already determined out there, could that not pay the bonding requirements for that?
That issue, again, I'm not that close to it, but that issue is not yet resolved as to what the town of Crawford would pay for that water. So you'd be guessing as to what kind of revenue might come out of that. And the other question I have to indicate is how many times has the county water authority borrowed money so far?
How many times the water authorities borrowed? None. They've never bonded.
Right.
Actually, you know, you need the full faith and credit of the county of Orange to guarantee those bonds. Because they have no revenue resources until such time as you identify ratepayers for the particular project that you're bonding. So at this point in time, anything that the Water Authority would bond would be guaranteed by the county, just like it does for Valley View, EF&S for the sewer district. So county is always on the line for it. But you know, just getting back to these expenses, there's over $30,000 that I think the legislature has to put back into this budget just to meet the statutory requirements under the Public Authority Accountability Act of 2005. So in order to be in compliance, I strongly urge that you put some more money into this budget. And I don't think you can wait until next year to wait and see. You've got a statutory obligation to fund the winding down costs for this authority.
Well, let me make a recommendation. Why don't we look at what those fees are instead of just picking a number, and then come back to the Ways and Means Committee next week, or later this week, I guess, and tell you what that number is. And then if you're going to make an addition to the budget, we can do it at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask another one?
Yes,
question, Mr.
Go ahead.
Can we get those numbers from the Water Authority?
That's where we'd have to get them from.
Yeah, I can do an analysis of, like, say, the last 3 years on what the actual costs were and what they were for. I can give you an explanation for each
Right.
budget line.
And our budget office will help you also.
Okay.
Thank you.
Legislator Kulisek, anything else?
No, sir, thank you.
Anyone else have questions? Okay, Enika, when was the last time you had a quorum of the board that allowed you to meet?
October 2019.
And in 2019, could you tell me roughly how many meetings you were able to hold with a quorum?
Probably 6.
So
7.
6 or 7 out of those 10, out of the 10 months you were able to meet with a quorum. Okay.
Yep.
Nothing in 2020. Okay.
Nope.
The discussion's been very informative, but it's also been very disturbing on my part. It seems like the direction of the county executive's office is clear, but it kind of deviates because it looked like there was going to be no water authority. Now it looks like there's got to be one, but it looks like the appointments are just going to be made so that they can take the necessary actions to basically close things out. I agree with Legislator Kulisek. You know, the Newberg Watershed land acquisition, the Water Authority proceeded in good faith to get that important funding for Newberg, and to see that not come to fruition and get as much benefit out of it as is available would be a terrible wrong that I think the county would be doing. Enika, you said that grant contract expires 12/31/2020, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, and I was waiting to do a contract extension if needed, based on how the budget process goes.
Can you go ahead with that request without the board giving you direction to do so?
Yeah, I can request a no-cost extension. I can't amend the contract without a board.
So if you receive direction from the county executive's office tomorrow, you could proceed with that so that it could be in front of the funding agency, later this week or early next week, and we could all maybe breathe a little easier so that we know that we've made the necessary moves to at least support what Mr. Poor is saying, that the intent of the county is to go ahead with that. I would have liked to have seen a more concrete plan as to how all this was going to happen. There are a lot of gaps, not just what Council Reed has presented, but how are we going to meet our responsibilities relative to the education for recycling? And there are a number of other things that seem to have big gaps. So I'm concerned about that. That's the end of my comments. I see there are a number of others who would like to speak on this. Mr. Kulisek, would you like to speak again?
Yes, I just have one question. Going back to the 2019, early 20 board meetings or board members, you said there was a quorum of 6 meetings in 2019. Was there a full complement of board members at that time and heading into early 2020?
Yes. Through April, we had a full 7-member board. That's when Marcia had resigned from the board. But our problem is 2 of our board members are snowbirds and go to Florida in the winters. So upon Marcia's exit from the board of directors, that left us with 4 members in the state of New York who were able to attend meetings. So if any one of them were busy or had a conflict to schedule, we could not secure quorum and hold the meeting.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Legislator Benton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so the last 20 minutes or half hour's discussions are just like I said from the beginning. I think we've kind of kicked the can down the road for the last 2 or 3 years at least, and it's time for the legislature to make the policy decisions with the county executive's office, like Mr. Poor delineated. That's what we really got to get rolling on, is getting this policy decided and finished.
Thank you. And I see the county executive has joined us. Would you like to?
How we doing, guys?
Hi.
I was trying to just keep quiet. I just hung up on a call with the governor. But look, I distinctly remember, and I said this to Steve Brescia about a half hour ago, having a meeting in Chairman Brescia's office last year where a subcommittee of legislators were going to get together and come up with what is going to be the role of the Water Authority. And Chairman Barry Cheney, you were going to be on that committee leading it. And I'm not trying to beat you up because it's been a crazy year, but we're in a catastrophic time right now. Mike Paduch and Lee Benton said it. Let's wait and see. We're not laying people off. Antoinette put up a good point about, look, if we have to pay bills that we're obligated to, absolutely, we'll put that in there. But it's a tough time right now. And I don't think, the problem with Browns Pond and Newberg and what's going on with the Dwark Hill, both very serious projects, if they are going to be jeopardized, absolutely. But, we're working with the city of Newberg and the state of New York and the federal government for their other water problems and in an advisory role in Newberg. So I'm like Harry, and I think Lee Benton and I have talked about this, $27 million. I had to go to the World Trade Center 2 years ago, guys, and tell them that we're writing off $27 million as a loss. That's like you declaring bankruptcy, guys. It's a loss. So now that we cleared up our books, we do have to figure out what we're doing. We do need to put board members on it. But rather than put political friends of ours on there, we're going to people that run water departments in the county, people with expertise, people that know about water, engineers, not just a guy that's friends with me or a guy that's friends with someone else. It's time to put experts on that board. I think instead of some, I wasn't happy with all the members in the past. I appreciate everybody's service, but it's time to put a board together, if we're going to keep it, of people that actually, I think, that are all experts in that field. And that's all I wanted to say. I know everybody's working hard. It's a tough time. I didn't mean to butt in. Harry was on it, but I was listening while I was on the phone with the governor's office. And I was on the phone with Orange Regional Medical Center. They're $80 million in the hole this year because of COVID. Everybody's tight. And I know how you guys are dealing with the budgets, one after another. Everybody's saying the county exec's a bad guy. He cut my budget. But if you're not getting laid off, and it's an important enough project, every one of you guys and me will be the first one to support a project in the future. But that's all I got to say. I apologize, Chairman Cheney, for butting in.
No, you're not butting in. We enjoy and appreciate your participation. Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Yes, Minority Leader Paduch, go ahead.
Yes, hi. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Poor, for you, as you know, I made a recommendation of Lou Ingrassia from the town of Walker, who's in charge of the DPW commissioner. Has there been any action in regard to him? I think I gave that to you probably a year ago.
He's first on my list, Mike. Sorry to butt in.
Just
best.
That's right.
That's probably the best guy you could put on.
That's right. Okay, thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Okay. I think our discussion on this is concluded. I would at this point ask for a vote on the budget for the Orange County Water Authority as presented. All in favor, aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. Okay, moving on. The budget review for the the Parks Department and Special Recreation Facilities. Could I get a motion and a second to review that, please?
So moved, Riskevich.
Riskevich and
Kulisek, second.
Kulisek, thank you. Okay, that can be found on pages 257 through 266 and 267 through 274. And I would assume that we have someone from the Parks Department with us. I believe I see Mr. Amadio, and I thought I saw Mr. Brooks also. So if you could just give an overview as to your budget, anything you'd like to point out, please go ahead at this point.
Okay, everybody. Hello. I get the pleasure of starting off with some good news for a change. Then I'm going to turn it over to Mike. For golf revenue this year, we're currently at about 1.9 million. Last year, for total of 2019, we were at 1.3 million. Our budget is historically, for years, long before I got here, beginning in the 1990s, was 1.5 million. And as far as Mike can remember, Parks has not hit that number in many, many, many years. So the good part that I have to report is that we're up substantially this year for golf revenue. And I'll let Mike fill you in on all the rest and be able to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Brooks. All right, before you should have my handout, the 2021 budget proposal summary that I do every year for you. The total budget, parks and golf, is $6,256,164. This will be a decrease of $366,231, or 5.53 from the 2020 budget. Parks alone is $4,219,436, and it would be a decrease of $403,033, or 8.72%. Golf's budget is $2,036,726. There's an increase of $36,802, or 1.84%. This budget, the overall decrease in county taxation will be by $287,656, or 6.8%, 6.08% decrease. And below there, you'll see the breakdown. Employee salary and benefits are increasing by $113,392. Debt service is up by $141,191. Contractual is less by $17,503. Equipment less by $23,000. And the austerity that I know budget had talked to all the legislature about is $580,311. We did decrease a couple of revenue lines. One revenue line in parks was for $50,000. This was on the tree harvesting, the forestry that we looked at. If Jim wants to make some remarks on that, but there wasn't a market for it last year, and then this year with COVID-19. And then we also reduced the golf revenue by $28,500 in the minor sales area. This was the advertising. We were going to look for sponsors for the tee areas. And again, we were unsuccessful in 2019. And here in 2020 with COVID, we couldn't ask for if there was anyone that would want to sponsor a hole or advertise on a hole. So again, I thought that was in the best interest to decrease those two areas. Any questions that anyone has? You go over the pages at all? Well, line by line, or?
Thank you. All right. Any questions from committee members? Legislator Kulisek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How much county taxation was going to go into this budget?
The total taxation?
Yeah.
In parks, total taxation is $3,905,034. And in the special recreation, it would be $536,728.
And did you meet the 15% reduction that was requested by the county executive's office?
Yeah, yes. Let me just.
Okay, and the overall budget's going to be 5.53 from the actual budget, 2020 budget, correct? Less?
Correct. 5.53% less in the total budget.
But in county taxation, you've met the 15% reduction.
Well, it's 8.2% in parks. But there is a slight increase. So the actual 15% was not met.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Minority Leader Paduk, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's a big question for me here. We know that there's an 80% austerity. I know you have 18 either there vacant positions in that department, and most of that 15% has come from the revenues that are not in your budget. I mean, they're not allowed to be spent in your budget for personnel. So does that money count towards that 15% reduction that you're supposed to meet? Do you know that, Mike, or you don't know that? I'm not sure about that, actually. Because it's listed as, I can tell you, personal services, minus 366, 425. That's on page 261, 569600. That's $366,000 right there in that regard. So,
Chairman Cheney,
excuse me, and employee benefits were another 158,777. So does that total amount count towards the 15% reduction?
Debbie, do you know the answer to that?
So yeah, let me just clarify something. So earlier this year, we did ask our departments to come in with a 15% reduction plan. Okay, but the directive that went out for the 2021 budget did not specifically address a 15% number. It's basically was to ask each department to come in as frugally as possible and to be very clear on what expenses are absolutely needed for next year. Okay, so it was not an absolute 15% for 2021. We've asked them to reduce and reduce and reduce for the past couple of years.
All right, just to follow up with you, Deb, on that. So that money's for those vacant funded positions that are in austerity count towards the percentage?
So yes, that austerity helped to reduce their taxation. Yes, it did.
Thank you. That's the question I had.
No, and Mike, it's not 18. It's more like seven positions.
Look, I have all this paperwork in front of me about how many vacant positions are in each department, some part-time, some full-time. In public works, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong, I just had it here. Maybe I am wrong in parks because it isn't listed as, here it is right here. Yeah, Parks Department.
We have 7 full-time positions. No.
Yeah, it says 2 full-time vacant positions and 17 seasonals.
It included seasonals, Jim.
Oh, okay. Well,
okay, so he's correct. He is correct.
Okay.
You're correct, Mr. Padu.
I just want to make sure I'm following this right. Thank you.
You are.
Okay, Legislator Tui, your hand's up. Go ahead.
Yeah, hey, Mike and Jim. I just wanted to, on page 260, and Deb also probably you can help with this, the austerity adjustment. I don't see anything in, where's that adjustment coming from? Because there's nothing in the earlier years, and then it comes in under the executive adjustment of minus 356, 425. Where's that coming from?
So that is coming from a number that is based on the number of vacant positions that existed on July 31st. And so we took 80% of that total number.
Okay, thank you.
just a follow-up question on that. So those vacant positions didn't exist in previous budgets?
They may not have, that is correct. They may have been filled. Seasonals come and go periodically. So we took that number at a point in time, which was basically at the end of July.
You need a lot of seasonals to add up to 356,000, I think.
Well, there were some full-time ones also. Okay, so it's a combination of all of them. You know.
So the expectation is that 20% of those positions wouldn't be filled, or the value of 20% wouldn't be filled.
The value of 80%.
The value of 80% would be filled. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or
Just
comments?
one follow-up, Chairman.
Yes,
Chairman,
go
one more
ahead,
follow-up.
Legislator Tui.
With that vacant positions getting eliminated or put on hold, and your revenues were up to 1.9 million. Was the service in any way impacted, or how was the workforce with that large of an increase in golf fees?
Well, in regards to the seasonals, because we were not leasing a lot of the facilities because of COVID, we were able to restructure our workforce to do the absolute minimum. So we were stretched to the limits. Guys held off taking vacations until basically starting next week. So just like every other department, it was all hands on deck. Mike and I did a lot of stuff on the weekends, and we made it happen. But it was a challenge for everyone, but everyone chipped in. It was all hands on deck.
Like you said,
we're done every day. We're done every once a week. Whatever it took to get the job done, everybody worked together.
All right. Well, congratulations on that year, and it's been a crazy year. And is that one of your high watermarks that we've had up at the golf course, Mike?
Yes. Yeah, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, combined Hickory and Stony, 51,000 rounds. We'll probably look at about maybe 55,000 rounds this year. So yes, it brings back the, from the good days back in the late 90s.
A lot. COVID was a large variable, but we've made some technical advances, structural improvements, and I still see people coming from New Jersey and New York City that came in April are still coming back. So we're anticipating that continue.
Real nice job. Thanks.
Thanks, Legislator Tui. Minority Leader Paduch.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, in regards to the fees at the golf courses, just confirm for me, will you please, that the veterans are paying the same amount as seniors now?
Yes.
I've heard that nothing changed. They are.
Yes, they are. And there's currently 41 veteran members. Since we implemented this several months ago, we have 41, and they've played approximately 338 rounds.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you for that. I know we worked on that, and I'm glad to hear that, because this one veteran, every morning I see him when I'm getting coffee, and he always tells me about, I play there a lot. How come we don't get? Anyway, I'm really happy that that's taken place. And then, Pete, I wanted to just mention something to you too. Don't forget now that the positions you said, he had 64 positions in 2020. He's got the same in 2021. Those 80% of those positions were funded, but usually never filled, which is why they still have 20% of their positions funded in this budget if they need to fill them. So that 80% is saving millions of dollars for our taxpayers, because they can't spend it and not just sit there and get taxed on it. So I just wanted to make sure that you get that the same way as I'm understanding it. Because it sounded like, how is that hurting you? But it's really not hurting them. They have the same amount as they had last year, and they have a 20% availability of hiring this year or in 2021 because they usually never fill the other 80%, but we always taxed on it. So now that's where we're saving millions of dollars for the taxpayers anyway.
Good. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions from legislators? Okay, then, hearing none, I'd ask for a vote on the budget for Parks Department and Special Recreation Facilities. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Carried. All right, we do have capital plan items on page 11. I'd like a motion and a second to consider the capital plan for Parks and Recreation.
Coolest
So
motion.
move, Paduk.
Coolest second, and second by Paduk. All right, Mr. Brooks or Mr. Amadio, would you give us a quick overview on your capital projects for 2021?
So the number 98, number 99 are for golf course improvements, $25,000 a year for the next 3 years. You want to go one at a time, or you want to go through the whole list?
No, just go through all of them, and then I'll ask for questions.
The Parks Historic Structures Initiative, which has been on the books before I got here. We're continuing to work with that. We've done work out in Algonquin. The paving remains the final 2 final years of a request that we put in 2 years ago. The improvements to county facilities overall, which is part of a request that we put in 2 years ago, and we continue to do that. The Heritage Trail is ongoing, and a small amount for parks equipment.
Yeah, and that's for the tennis court. The tennis court groomer.
And what specifically relative to the tennis court?
It's a roller.
Yeah, it's the current one we have is purchased back in the late 90s.
Yep.
And just over the last 3 years, we've put in about $6,500 worth of repairs. And there's currently a requisition in there for additional $1,400 to make repairs over the winter to get it up and running for the spring. And as you can see, it cost $8,500 for a new, so you're almost throwing good money after bad money. I think it's time to to buy a new one.
And over the last couple of years, the tennis courts have just been swamped every day. And of course, I'm sure many of you know. If you don't, the material that's on there needs to be groomed every day, watered every day, and rolled every day to allow play to continue.
But because they are true courts, as you know.
Yes. All right. Minority Leader Paduk, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just on that same page 1100, the Parks Historic Structures Initiative, was that going to be implemented this year, or has it been, and you've not spent any money?
No, it has been, and the last money we used was for we pointed up with DPW on the Algonquin repairs, and we did the walls there and removed some trees and did some other work there on the dam.
Okay, because the project cost us 500. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, there was a report there also that a report was in, I guess, fairly recently into the historian, and I guess she's deciding now how to proceed with the structures that exist on that site, and part of the money that would be available under this line would go to help with some of those improvements.
All right, so you're putting a plan together for this year. That's what's happening right now through that initiative.
That is correct. Everything's what's that?
And the 150 is opposed to use how? Do you know, or you don't have that information yet?
It's just not exclusive. It's not exclusive for. We're also doing work. We also are doing work in the D&H Canal. So we just had a report that was finished in about 30 days ago. We had a meeting with representatives of different groups at the D&H Canal, how they want to proceed based upon that report. So this is for all of the county parks or sites that have or need improvement.
All right. Well, we'll know anyway when you come back to get that money, right? So we'll know
100%.
have a lot more information. Thank you.
All right, Legislator Kulisek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Going back to the park structure, it's historic structures. At Algonquin, I don't think there's anything been done with the structures there. No.
No, nothing. Had a conversation with Johanna, a couple of months ago. All of her reports. I don't know how much of the COVID situation has impacted her planning, but this was set up before I got here, and I believe the intention was to do these upgrades at the different sites when it was decided the path to take. So a lot of that information is based on the report that the historian has, and the decision how to make a path forward is forthcoming.
But the historian doesn't make policy for, we vote on the budget. We a lot of funds to do some stabilization of structures and things like that before they really just crumbled, which they have been since you and I walked the park there three times. We've had a tour with most legislators a couple times.
Sure.
And the city of Newberg didn't need to give the park to the county to let it deteriorate. I mean, they could have let it deteriorate themselves. And here we have these structures, and we've been talking about it for years. And we finally had a somewhat of a plan in place. We had somebody come through and assess what needed to be done just to stabilize it, and we've done nothing. So
I'm ready to move forward as soon as I know what that path is. It has to. My understanding was that whatever was in that report was a suggestion on how to move forward.
It's just the weather. Again, we're going to go through another winter now. Probably some of the structures that were half left of what was original have deteriorated down to maybe a little more than a quarter of what's left of the original buildings now. And the longer we go, yes, we can all throw the COVID scenario out there, but we could have had or should have had some sort of a direction before COVID hit, I think. So I'm very disappointed in the progress. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Legislator Kulisek. Legislator Benton.
Thank you. Yes, I believe we've been waiting for development of a plan working with the historian. I have not spoken to her in quite some time about this. I'm disappointed as well.
Okay, thank you, Legislator Benton. Legislator Fagiano.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm sorry for some comments of disappointment. I want to compliment Commissioner Brooks and his staff. This summer has been very trying in terms of COVID across our community. Obviously, we saw those numbers in terms of golf. I can tell you firsthand that I took advantage of our county campground at Winding Hills, and it was fantastic. The staff was amazing, incredible. They kept that facility looking great, and they probably saw more visitors this year than maybe in the last couple of years. I also want to compliment the Parks Commissioner and his staff. Despite COVID, we had issues over here in Western Orange County near the D&H Canal Park and a little road called Prospect Hill Road, and there was some people coming from outside the community who were barbecuing and picnicking on county property that they shouldn't have been at, and the commissioner addressed that immediately and took care of it. So I just want to compliment them. I'm sorry I'm saying this now. I didn't get it in the moment before, and now that you're on Capitol, but I appreciate the time, Commissioner, and I appreciate the time, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Legislator Fagiano. Any other?
Chairman, if I
want
can
to
just
comment?
Yes,
go ahead.
Again, I thank for those comments regarding the campground. This year, we took in $78,286.35 versus $60,933.35 in 2019. So it was an increase a little over 17,000, 28%. So that was great for the camp. So I thought I'd just give you those numbers.
Yep. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Legislator Menuda, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to comment and thank the department for the work that they've done at the Kawawasi unique area over in New Windsor. I don't know if we receive any monies from that, but the place has definitely been cleaned up since Commissioner Brooks and I went out there and take a look at it. And I just want to say you guys are doing a great job over there. So thank you. If you need any support on that, let me know.
Thanks, Legislator Menuda. All right. I don't see any more hands up. I'll just put it out there one more time. Anyone from the legislature would like to speak? Go ahead. All right. Hearing none, then I will call the question on the capital plan for Parks Department. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
You guys have a great day. Bye.
Thanks. Okay, next up, Department of Public Works, and we have a number of resolutions initially before we get into the budget. First resolution is a resolution authorizing the County of Orange to contract with certain towns and villages for snow and ice control on certain county roads. Funding in the amount of $324,380 is available in the 2020 snow removal budget. It's legislative request number 176. Could I get a motion in a second, please?
Paduk move.
Benelli motion.
Dewey, second.
Okay, I have Legislator Paduk with the motion and Legislator Benelli with the second. Go ahead, Mr. Danega. Just a little overview on this.
Eric, you muted, I think.
You're still muted.
All right, we're trying to get through.
There you go.
Okay. We got the phone, or throw us through the phone, but, like, this one we would hope to have on last month's agenda, but we're waiting. I'm gonna turn this off. We were waiting on some of the resolutions, some of the agreements that get returned from a couple of the municipalities, so we had to wait till this month. Again, this is just a snow plowing. We do this every year. There's very little change. We only added a very short section on the form wall for their request. They help maintain the roads during the winter time. It's pretty standard.
Okay, any questions or comments from any committee members? Yes, Legislator Kulisek, go ahead.
I'm just curious on the cost per mile. Has it gone up?
It went up by $100 this year, from $4,800 to $4,900.
Thank you.
Which was it didn't go up at all last year. That was a well-needed increase.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from legislators? All right, hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Next, we have capital project number 890 was established for transfer station replacement equipment. During the time of closure, the county received additional state revenue in the amount of $5,882.66 and have excess state revenue in the amount of $7,669.66. Request that the additional state revenue be accepted and that excess revenue of $7,669 be applied towards debt service. Supplemental appropriation required project to be closed. Legislative request number 156. Could I get a motion and a second, please?
Kulisek motion.
Kulisek, thank you. And a second? I'll second it.
Menuda.
All right, so Kulisek on the motion, Cheney on the second. Go ahead, Commissioner.
These items are cleanup items for the most part that finance sends our direction so they can close out these projects. We received the money a while back, but this kind of officially closes the loop and they can close them out. Otherwise, we were just accepting additional funds, which is good news.
Okay. Legislators on the committee, any questions or comments? Other legislators, questions or comments? Okay, hearing and seeing none, I will call the question on this motion. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried unanimously. Next, capital project number 889 was established for transfer station replacement equipment. During the time of closure, the county received additional state revenue in the amount of $43,975.60 and have excess state revenue in the amount of $43,976.32. Request that the additional state revenue be accepted and that excess revenue of $43,976.32 be applied towards debt service supplemental appropriation required project to be closed. Legislative request number 157. Could I get a motion in a second, please?
So
Benelli
moved.
Somebody move it.
Tui on the motion and Benelli on the second. Go ahead, Commissioner.
This one's the same deal of accepting additional funds and closeout projects per finance's request.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from legislators on the committee? Any questions or comments from other legislators? All right, seeing and hearing none, I will call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. All right. Next, we have capital project number 826 was established for sewer infiltration and inflow. During the time of closure, the county received additional state revenue in the amount of $9,685. Requested the state reimbursement amount of $9,685 be accepted and applied towards debt service. Supplemental appropriation required. Project to be closed. Legislative request number 158. Could I get a motion in a second, please?
Benelli motion.
Cool is second on the motion and Benelli on the second. Anything different to say this time, Commissioner?
Same deal, just this one's for the sewer part of the business instead of the transfer station, that's all.
Any questions or comments from committee members? Questions or comments from other legislators? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Next, we have a resolution confirming all and increasing certain rates charged at Orange County-owned solid waste disposal facilities for all waste streams and amending all past resolutions setting previous rates. Legislative request number 180, and I'd ask for a motion in a second, please.
So moved, Tui.
A second, please.
Ruskovich, second.
Thank you. So Legislator Tui on the motion and Legislator Ruskevich on the second. Commissioner, go ahead, and I understand there's one typo that needs to be corrected. So if you could let the committee and the other legislators know what that is at this time before you start your full discussion.
Yes, this was on one of the backup documents for C&D disposal. The tipping fee should actually say being changed to $113.50, which will match what we're doing with municipal solid waste as well. I believe it's shown on the documentation as no change at all.
Right.
This in general, this resolution, we've taken a look at all the different waste streams, including recycling coming through the transfer station. This resolution sort of takes into consideration a number of old resolutions that affected different sort of piecemeal streams of waste coming through the transfer station. One will be, it'll be in line with the budget for the tipping fees starting in January, which is the $113.50 for municipal solid waste, $110 for single stream recycling, which is in the budget as well, to go into effect on January 1st. Others on there are for other miscellaneous commodities, which is monitors and tires and paper and whatnot. There's some items on there we would like to put into effect no later than December 1st to basically bring in that additional revenue, which is why we wanted to have this on the agenda and not wait till next month, because there's an opportunity there with the budget restraints that we're dealing with COVID-19 to get some of the smaller commodities price changes in place for December, potentially bring in another $20,000 of revenue to the transfer station. These are smaller items. They don't affect the municipalities as a whole, like the municipal waste tipping fees and the single stream recycling tipping fees. This will affect individual bag garbage that comes in. It'll affect other recycling commodities as well. So, and the list should be attached in the backup.
All right, thank you very much. I would, I guess just in terms of highlighting things before I go to questions, just, everybody should know that a couple of the items that may be most important and we might get more feedback on, the single residential bags, the tipping cost for that is going to go from $2 per bag to $3 per bag. And for senior citizens, 60 and over with proof of age, from 50 cents per bag to $1 per bag. So those are two of the, possibly more ones that would garner more interest from the public. So I see Legislator Kulisek, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, current tipping rate 106. I thought we were at 104. The last increase was brought us to 104, I thought.
Yeah, I believe it was 104 in 2019, and we went to 106 in 2020.
And we approved that? I don't remember that. I don't remember a raise.
Yeah, it was done this time of year last year, I believe, or with the budget cycle. We may have not officially come back for a resolution on that because it was done through the budget cycle, but all the rates are basically in line to prevent us having to increase taxation. I will mention that, and you'll see as we get into the budget, that due to COVID-19, our tonnage is way down. Our commercial tonnage is way down. Residential tonnage is actually up, but nowhere near enough to compensate for the revenue loss that we've seen from the reduction in commercial tonnage. So all of this, in addition to not being able to use any surplus this year based on discussions with the budget department, and then you take into consideration other annual increases like union raises and whatnot. This 113.50 puts us at a number where we feel we don't need to increase the taxation from where it's been in years past.
So that's 113.50 for C&D and home improvement project. Is that what you're telling me? Construction demolition, right?
See, construction demolition is the error that was on the backup documentation that would also go up to 113.50 to match the municipal solid waste tipping fee.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Legislator Kulisek. Any other questions or comments from legislators on the committee? Any questions or comments from other legislators present? Okay, hearing none, I will call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, unanimous. All right. That concludes our review of motions, and now we'll move into the budget review. And just, I'm kind of going to go a little bit out of order on these things. We're going to do the airport first, then the small watershed protection, and then environmental facilities, and then we'll come back and get the bulk of the DPW. So I would ask for a motion and a second to review the budget for the airport.
Benelli motion.
Kulisek, second.
Benelli, Kulisek with a second. Okay. All right. Could you give us a quick overview? And that airport is found on pages 340 through 348.
All right, so the airport, actually, business has been good, better than usual, really better than ever. At this point, it's been going well even before COVID, but then COVID has really even spiked the business even further. Something that really, I guess, was COVID-proof in a sense, but even got a boost from it because there's something else somebody could do. Fuel sales are up, surplus is good. One challenge that they're having is really the short staff, so Ed has been working with that on the tight budgets. He's been doing a great job bringing in the FAA funding and also balancing the workload because he's been missing his main supervisor out there who had resigned. So between that and been balancing all the grant management, he's been doing an excellent job, but he will be very much in need of filling that position eventually here. We are working with budget and the county exec's office to look for the right time to do that. Time is not yet right now, but we'll keep an eye on that and see how airport revenue goes into 2021. And one of the bigger projects coming up will be the bidding of the SRE building in 2021 as well. Commercial hangars are 100% occupancy, T hangars are 100% occupancy, and tie downs are at 98% occupancy, to give you an idea of how well things are doing over there.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that summary. I would open the floor to any questions or comments from any legislators on the committee. Okay, I don't see any questions or comments from Legislator Kulisek. I see your hands up. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm interested in the grant monies for water sewer. Where are we with water and sewer?
Let me see, Ed should be on the phone. You there, Ed?
Yeah, I'm up. Eric, you want me to respond to that?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Legislator Kulisek, right now we are in the design phase of the sewer grant project. Felonzer Engineering won the bid to be the engineers for our state projects earlier in the year, and they are preparing the design for the sewer connection with the village, as well as working in tandem on the town connection for the water, being that there are some items that are kind of similar as far as the design work. So both of those projects are kind of working in tandem, although the priority is going to the sewer because that grant expires in April.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Legislator Kulisek. Any other comments or questions from committee members? Okay, any comments or questions from other legislators? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question on the airport budget. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, thank you. Carries unanimously. And we do have capital projects for the airport, which can be found on page 9 in the capital book. And if you could just kind of briefly run down that list.
Barry,
Yes.
can I have a motion and a second, please?
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Okay.
Motion and a second on the capital plan for the airport.
Kulisek motion.
Kulisek motion.
Benelli second.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Okay, it looks like we have about 6 2021 projects on the slate. 50,000 for the airport infrastructure capital improvements. $1.25 million to connect town and water sewer. $2.5 million for design and construct a commercial hangar. $1.2 million to install and repair a fence and security system. and $67,000 for a rotating beacon, and then the snow removal equipment storage building, which is the SRE building I referred to earlier, which is $627,000.
Okay, any questions or comments from committee members? Yeah, Minority Leader Paduch, go ahead.
Yes, you're
You're
muted,
muted.
Mike.
Yeah.
Can't be perfect. In regards to the rotating beacon, didn't we get a $67,000 grant for that?
That's for the design.
That's for what?
For the design of the beacon. That's the first grant. So we do a design grant, and then once the design is complete, we bid it, and then the construction grant follows. The beacon's
okay,
not.
So that. Go ahead.
The beacon design is $67,000. The construction is going to be more than that.
Right, I see the total project. So you don't plan on doing anything after you design it in 2021 until 2023? Is that correct?
Correct. FAA has a 2-year window between design and construction grants. They have a 1-year kind of a buffer because sometimes there's environmental items that come in the way that can get prolonged and push us into the next year. So a couple years ago, they changed the grant situation to having a buffer year for construction grants.
Okay, thanks. I didn't know that.
Okay, thank you. Legislator Kulisek, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, just most of these 6 projects are all mostly grant money. If you look on the column on the right side, what we need to borrow is minimal compared to the grant totals.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out. Appreciated. Any other questions or comments from committee members of the legislators? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I will call the question on the airport capital plan. All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed, carried unanimously. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to the small watershed protection, which is found on pages 365 through 371. And I would ask for a motion and a second to review this budget.
Benelli motion.
Kulisek, second.
Benelli and Kulisek. Okay, go ahead, Commissioner.
All right, the watershed protection, as you recall, includes 3 smaller districts. It's one in Wallkill, another is Crime Line Creek in the town of Chester by the Black Dirt, or the village of Chester, and then also the Beaver Dam Lake district over there. A couple updates on the Crime Line. We are pursuing a FEMA grant right now that Travis Ewald had filled out and at least accepted the initial concept to do some much needed pump replacement systems in the pump building. Beaver Dam Lake, we have right now the dam project coming very near to completion. Still optimistic it'll be done by the end of the year. We're just waiting for some long lead time materials to come in, but we're about 95% complete with that project right now. And then hopefully life will be relatively back to normal over there for those folks. There was an increase in the consultant line item, I believe, that Chairman Cheney had raised a question to me about, and that had more to do with the Beaver Dam Lake Advisory Board deciding to hire a consultant service to manage some of the recreational facilities over there.
Okay. All right, I see Majority Leader Benelli, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you may have answered my question. When I look at the budget in its totality, I see that recreation coordinator and lifeguard and senior lifeguard, and this is on page 367, have been eliminated from the budget. Is that because they're hiring an outside consultant and those monies would be included in the other line item you just referred to?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I'm getting yes from our fiscal manager here.
Thank you very much. Also, if you recall, and I don't know if everybody received the email from Larry Rossini, who is a resident there. He used to be on the board. One of the things that he pointed out in reviewing the budget is that when you look at page 365, which talks about the mission statement and the objectives, it really doesn't give an indication as to what this fund actually represents. It doesn't break it out as that there's 3 different projects or 3 different entities that are in this budget, and it used to. And I thought that that was a very good suggestion for that to be put back in there under both the mission statement and the objectives, because it's rather misleading. You don't even see anything referring to the 3 separate entities. So I would suggest that for next year, we take careful consideration to making sure there's a revision there.
And I don't disagree with that at all. I did see that email from Mr. Rossini. And I do, Melinda Bender in my office, I believe, has already reached out to the budget department to see what we can do about that. So we hope to have more clarity in the future for those items.
And one final question, and I think I may know the answer to it, but Avi, has the board from the Beaver Dam Lake Association reviewed this budget?
Yes.
Absolutely. They work directly with Melinda Bender in my office.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
Next, I have Legislator Benton.
Thank you. With Beaver Dam Lake being nearing completion, when are they going to, is it going to have to be 100% complete before they close the gate and allow the water to, the rainfall and runoff and such to, refill it?
It doesn't have to be 100% complete, but there is one item that we're still waiting on with some long lead time items that needs to be completed before we can do that. So we're hopeful within the next couple of months here there's going to be filling, and we'll be hitting a nice rain season through the winter and the spring with all the gates closed and the lake beginning to fill.
Okay. And what are they going to be doing about the vegetation that's grown since? Is that going to be mowed down, or what are we going to be able to do?
I'm going to have Travis address that. We have been working, Travis is here with me in the room. We have been working with a consultant on that avenue, and they have been out there to take some soil samples, and I believe the report came back that we don't have to really do too much with it. I know the community has also been organizing to pull some weeds around the swimming area, but the main concern was about the algae and harmful algae, and they went and basically examined the vegetation, basically came back and said we don't really need to do much, but I'll let Travis add to that if there's.
Thank you, Eric. The result of the report that was prepared by our consultant was that the nutrient loading in the soil was so high that the amount of vegetation that would decay and create any additional nutrient loading would really be minimal at all, and it wouldn't be cost effective to try to take any mitigation measures as far as removing the existing vegetation. They did take soil samples so that they could prepare a plan, better lake management going forward though.
Okay. Next, I see Minority Leader Paduch. You have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just in regards to personnel, I'm a little confused here on the staffing analysis in the beginning of the budget. It says you request 1, and the executive said no, but then the executive total is 1. So I'm a little confused as to where that 1 is in the budget. Is it under personal services, lifeguard? Is it the lifeguard like Katie was talking about? Or
It's labor.
But you're not using it? I'm sorry.
It's laborer. It's a laborer.
So we gave you 1.
Position.
I'm sorry.
Labor 2 position. Okay, but then why did the county executive zero it out? Is that just a typo?
Changes, I thought that's what that zero was, no changes,
That-
so one.
I think that was his adjustment
no
was
changes.
zero.
Exactly. It's there was no adjustment. That's his adjustment. So it would be, he made a zero adjustment to what they requested.
Okay, and does that meet the 20% guideline that he has to hire? From the positions he has the ability to hire from? Does he meet the 80% austerity portion of it?
I'll let Budget speak to that, but I think just because it's a special district, that rule may be a little different.
That is correct. There is no taxation in this district, and I believe that position is probably filled. Yes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That was my question.
All right, thank you. I don't see any others. Are there any other comments or questions from committee members or other legislators? Okay, then, seeing none, I'll call the question on the budget for the small watershed protection. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay, and there is no capital for this budget. Next, we're going to move to the environmental facilities and services, including sewer district number 1, found on pages 372 to 396. Could I get a motion and a second, please? Kulisek, second Tui. Okay, Commissioner, go ahead.
Thank you. I do have Bob Gray with me and also Dave Trimble, our fiscal manager for our EF&S. Just a quick overview for the transfer stations. I think we covered a bit already about the tonnage. We're down on commercial tonnage, only slightly up on the residential tonnage. So overall, our revenue has taken a big hit because of COVID. We've reflected that in the proposed budget for 2021. We've worked closely with budget, and we were being even more conservative than what we've seen to make sure that we don't over exceed the expectations. Like I said, we've increased the tipping fees to $113.50 for MSW. Keep taxation where it is, and up to from 106 to 110 for single stream recycling to keep taxation where it's at. And then in addition to those other commodities we talked about earlier, that we're working and really trying to look outside the box to see where we can possibly save additional, bring funds, bring in more revenue here to make this operate more like this. So we're doing everything we can. Bob's been doing a great job coming in here in the last year and a half to really examine a lot of those things. And regarding the transfer station project, this is more capital, but we are in the process of modifying our bid documents to do just the demolition of the Newberg transfer station for now. Since bids came in extremely high, we understand the funds weren't there at this point. It'll be up for potentially later discussion, but right now we need to remediate that site in accordance with DEC requirements. So we've been in close communication with the DEC to extend deadlines in order to rebid that, just with the demolition portion, and restore that site.
Okay, thank you.
We'll talk about the sewer district after that, Chairman, I assume.
Oh, yeah, why don't you go ahead right into the sewer district.
Okay. Our main focus with the sewer district has been really the 3 million gallon per day expansion of the Harriman sewage treatment plant. We've been working with the advisory committee, the legislature, and also with physical services, have now entered into the secret process for that project, which will be a major portion of the capital discussion here for the sewer district. We're currently the process of doing the scoping review, and hope to have that back to the legislature in a month or two. Sewer rates are actually down by $1, which is based on more billable units coming into the district. And the Moodna rate is actually up a little bit, but that's calculated separately from the rest of the district. Moodna is not a district user. Other than that, it's been quite busy. I was also dealing with the construction of the North Interceptor, which is the major sewer line connecting essentially Palm Tree to the Harriman sewage treatment plant, and working with that developer to get that installed.
Okay, Commissioner, thank you. All right, at this time, I would ask If there are any committee members who have questions or comments, Legislator Tui, go ahead. You're on mute.
Pete.
Sorry. Just wanted to ask about that North Interceptor and also with the totals, the gallons per day on 388. It has here as the 2020 budgeted amount over in the KJ plan at 750. I know that Interceptor is going to the work that you're doing over there will help get up towards that number. I don't think we're there yet in 2020, but will that be completed in 2021?
Sorry, I got a little technical interference there. We didn't hear the last part of what you said there.
No, I'm just saying that 2020 on page 388, the 2020 budgeted gallons flow per day. It looks like the Orange County Sewer District number 1 and Moodna kind of washed each other out. And then in the KJ plant, you have it in 2020 at 750. I think the North Interceptor was affecting that, or some other projects that they're doing over there. You have it in 2021 as 750,000 gallons a day also. And I'm just wondering, will that work be completed so we can reach that number? 2021 of gallons per day at the KJ plant.
Yeah.
Bob's going to take that.
Yeah, there's improvements going on at the KJ plant. Three components: the screener, an equalization tank, and some improvements to the filtration. All of those will allow us to operate that plant at close to its 1 million gallon a day capacity. Right now, it's running at about 600,000 a day, a portion of the million. So as that happens, we'll have less going down the North Interceptor.
And when do you think that'll be completed in 2021?
So that's probably, all those items probably won't be online until the end of next year.
2021.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, Legislator Kulisek, go ahead. You're on mute, Jim.
Tipping fees for municipalities, have they been notified there's going to be an increase?
Yes, we sent the notification out, I think, last month, that really addressed all the fees changes that were on the list that you provided with. And we did have some we had some conversations with Chairman Chaney about that as well, because he in the past has really urged us to make sure we had enough notice out. And next year we even talked about maybe trying to do it even a little bit earlier for at least for the town's budget cycles. Obviously the villages have different budget cycles, and we can't necessarily line up with everybody, but we're trying to give as much notice as possible.
Yeah, they're all in the middle of it now, finalizing these budgets if they haven't already. So, thank you.
Yeah, Legislator Kulisek, they were sent. The municipalities were sent a letter in September, and I want to say probably the earlier part of the month, advising them that this is what what they were proposing to the legislature, and it wouldn't be finalized until it was actually adopted. The budget was adopted by the legislature, or these rates that were that we approved previously today, and so they've gotten them before they've had to finalize their budgets, and as the commissioner said, next year we're looking to try and do it even a little earlier, so that it's in the very early stages of their budget development, and for the towns at least.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments from legislators on the committee or other legislators relative to the Environmental Facilities and Services budget? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I will call the question on the Environmental Facilities and Services budget. All in favor, aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, carried. And we do have capital plan for environmental facilities and services on page 10. And could I get a motion and a second for the capital plan?
Motion, Coulter.
Kulisek and a second.
Tui. Second, Tui.
Legislator Tui, thank you. Okay. Let me find it. Yeah, you want to just run down those items?
Yeah, I believe we have two projects under the landfill, one 2021, which would be fleet equipment replacement, in the amount of 334,000, and a C&D pad at the New Hampton transfer station, which is something we've been working with the DEC with, and they'd like us to build. On the sewer side, we have also two projects. One is the 3 million gallon expansion of the Harriman Sewer Treatment Plant, which I just referred to earlier, and that in combination with the sewer longevity improvements at the Harriman Treatment Plant, they've essentially become one project. It's the total project of 54 million, but 3.8 million for 2021, which would be basically for design services. And then lastly, equipment replacement for 350,000 within the sewer district.
Right. And those are on page 12 in case anybody's hunting for them. Okay, any, yes, Legislator Tui, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Commissioner, on page 12, line 110, with the expansion project, and you have it laid out here at $54 million. I notice, I know that in our committee, our advisory committee, we discussed grants and some different funding sources. Am I right to think that there's nothing listed in state and federal others because we haven't gotten that far in the project? And will there be funding from outside sources rather than it's listed here as borrowing $54 million?
Correct. I understand last year I believe we had just missed a lot of the deadlines. As Delaware Engineering had outlined for us for some of those grant opportunities, so they wanted to put it in, I believe, for this year. So we are anticipating, in accordance with our consultants' advice, that they believe we are going to be eligible for some funding. We couldn't even begin to tell you how much at this point. But if you recall, when we went through the secret process in the beginning, we used a positive declaration of environmental impact, and now we're in the preparation of the scoping and preparing a draft environmental impact statement, mainly for the purpose of being eligible for funding for the project.
All right. Any other questions or comments from committee members?
I think Mr. Tui is trying to speak again.
Sorry, I got muted there. So later on, as future funding comes available, and we know what they are as it develops in future budgets, will those dollars then appear in the state and federal and other, I guess, right? In future budgets, we just don't know it now.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you, Legislator.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from other committee members of the legislators? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I will call the question on the capital plan for the environmental facilities and services budget. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed, so it passes unanimously. All right. Next, I'd like to move on to the remaining sections of the DPW budget, and I'd like a motion, and we'll take them all as under one motion: administration, buildings, central motor pool, county road, and road machinery. So could I get a motion and a second to review those budgets, those DPW?
Kulisek motion.
Kulisek,
Second.
and Riskevich on the second. Kulisek on the motion, Riskevich on the second. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank
I
you.
think just go through all of them and then we'll take questions.
We proposed a $51 million budget for 2021, which was cut back by the 5% through the county executive's review by about close to 2.4 million cut back, landing us around $48.5 million. Overall, when we look at the highway department and building and grounds, just a quick update on things. Obviously, on the building and grounds sides, they've been working quite diligently through a good portion of the year with the COVID challenges for all the county facilities and whatnot, and reworking workspaces and putting in plexiglass and all these items. That's pretty much come to an end, most, except for some miscellaneous items. We've had to step up our cleaning and disinfection services, which would continue into 2021. We did this year finish the cooling tower at the courthouse, and we're currently working now to award a designer for the new morgue facility, which we'll see in the capital plan. On the highway side, some of the COVID impacts we've had to delay roughly 5 bridge projects, 3 culvert projects, and 2 bridge design projects, really just to stay in line with where our budget constraints are falling into place right now, keep the cash flow moving, even though a lot of that's capital, some of it's not, but it still affects the cash flow in general. So the projects that we did complete, though, even in light of the restraints that COVID has faced us with, are the 9 bridge deck repairs. We are about 80% done with the Heritage Trail going out from Goshen to Middletown. They're still currently working out there now, and the rest of it will be finished in the spring. And we are proceeding with one major bridge project, that being the Orange Spring Bridge on Carboy Road in the town of Mount Hope. That one, the panels had already gone in. I think they're getting pretty close to completing that bridge here this fall. Otherwise, everybody has been staying relatively healthy. We've been working at full staff in the office since June 1st, after a lot of telecommuting. But we've been very lucky, and I think our staff has been staying quite diligent about following the rules and whatnot. So we're doing what we can with a very shortened staff. We've had to consolidate some construction crews just because we haven't been able to replace some, but we're getting by with that. And obviously, we may have to lean more on contracted crews and consultants. We are short 2 or 3, I think 2 licensed engineers, I believe, that we won't be able to replace for a while. So our staff is working hard to do more with less, and like everybody else is around the county. But right now, we're keeping our heads above water. So.
Okay. I would ask the legislators on the committee if they have any questions at this time, and to, if you're referencing a particular line item, give the page number first and then the line item. Okay, I don't see any hands up from committee members. Are there any other legislators who would like to ask questions or make comments on the DPW budget? All right, seeing none, then I'll call the question on the DPW budget for administration, buildings, central motor pool, county road, and road machinery. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. And we do have capital projects for DPW. They're found on pages 9 and 10 in the capital project book. And I would ask for a motion and a second on the DPW capital project.
Kulisek motion.
Kulisek, thank you. Benton second. So Kulisek on the motion, Benton on the second. Commissioner, go ahead.
Okay, starting on page 9, skipping past the airport, which was covered. Building and grounds, asbestos removal, and ADA compliance, 2 separate projects, 50,000. Those we see every year. Those are standard projects which we have in there to take into consideration items as they come up, with some of it being planned. Building capital improvements for 350, building equipment replacement installation, 150,000. We've got the Maple building renovations for 375, and I do have Brian Titsworth in the room with me right now, so if we have any specific questions on some of these, he's here to answer those. Some motor equipment replacement for 140,000. Do you want me to, I'll stop there for building and grounds for a moment before I go on the highway?
Sure. Any questions on those 6 that Commissioner's gone over? Yes, I see Legislator Kulisek, you have a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, Maple building renovations. Is it designed? Are there plans? Who's doing the work? Is it going out to bid?
It has not been designed yet. We have a preliminary concept design. We were in discussions with New York State Department of Labor. That's for the 4th floor of the Maple building. This is specific to. So we're still in discussions with them. Now, COVID's added another layer to that, to their status as to whether they're going to come back or not. That's New York State Department of Labor.
But design of the building is who's going to do the work? Is it going to go out to bid, or is it going to be in-house work, or?
It would most likely go out to bid.
Okay, so there's really not a whole bunch of information right now. That's what I'm getting here.
No, not right now. There's not. Like I said, we have a concept plan, and we were in discussions with DOL. So what, long term of the space. So that's one of the last in-person meetings we had in, I think it was early March with them. We haven't heard much from them since.
Okay. Looks like you can continue on, Commissioner.
Okay, still just the bottom of page 9, Bank Street Bridge rehabilitation. That one's over in the village of Warwick, which we've been working closely with the mayor over there on. On page 10, you've got the contaminated soil removal, various locations for 50,000. Is that up front here? Mm-hmm. That's for the DPW garage, which has been sort of fading out to completion. That you see that number has gone down from years past. I think it used to be 100,000 per year, and we're getting real close to getting that completely remediated, and some of the restrictions and requirements are getting lifted. Cromline Creek, it's the $1 million I think I referenced earlier about the grant application that Travis Ewald put in for FEMA funding. To hopefully get some funds there to start replacing those pumps there. We have drainage improvements, which is pretty standard, $150,000. We typically work on culverts and roadside drainage. Fleet replacement, $800,000. Garden Town Bridge rehabilitation, that's $35,000, which is really just going to be design. Moving down to line 49, which is Highland Mills Bridge replacement, $900,000. And intersection improvements for $100,000, which is line 50, and that's something that we've another one of those annual items that we typically use to improve, especially when we might get notice of claims or complaints that come in, and we need to evaluate different intersections as time goes on, and a lot of that stuff we need to be reactive to. We do have some plans for some intersection improvements over in Fostertown Road, which is some improvements that have already been made there, but the permanent improvements will be forthcoming for design. The Main Street Bridge number 2, which is in the town of Cornwall for $1.6 million. And we have the Morris Bridge replacement for $1 million, and non-highway paving projects, which is $100,000, which is parking lot projects essentially. And site distance improvements for line 63, which is $150,000. That is typically another item that we have annually, because as vegetation grows or new roads come in or what happens, we're typically having to stay on top of that and react to situations. Strength paving, which is obviously just paving of all our highway works, that goes in conjunction with our CHIPS funding. And I will say that, obviously we're trying to maximize our CHIPS funding. As I referenced earlier, we've delayed some projects, but we've essentially tried to maximize whatever CHIPS funding we have and move forward with whatever projects we did have CHIPS funding for, and we'll continue to do that. Line 66 is the garage floor reconstruction, 200,000. That's the last phase of that, and that's it for DPW.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from committee members on the capital items? Yes, Legislator Kulisek.
Just number 45, the Gardnertown Bridge rehabilitation. Is that Gardnertown at Gidney Avenue? Is that it? That bridge?
Travis is looking up that right now.
That's up on Gardnertown Road in town Newberg over the Quisay Creek.
At Gidney, right? At Gidney. Grimm's Pond, Lee? Is that what we're talking?
I'm not sure.
I think it's more up by the police station.
Okay.
Yeah, we're getting a yes on the police station, near the police station.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments from committee members or other legislators? Okay, seeing none, I will call the question on the DPW capital. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, carried unanimously. And if I'm not mistaken, it looks like everything's been covered. The desk is clear. And I would just like to thank everybody for their attention, their engagement, their perseverance. It's been a bit of a long one, but thank you all. And I will look for a motion to adjourn.
So move, Tui.
Legislator Tui. And a second?
Second.
Kulisek.
Thank you, Legislator Kulisek. So that's Tui on the motion to adjourn, Legislator Kulisek on the second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Again, thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
Have a good one, Chairman. Thank you. Good job, Barry.
Okay, Barry.